What's up, Eagles Nation, and welcome to week two of the National Football League. Of course, season of the fan, and the Eagles have their home opener this tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern Time kickoff on Fox. Of course, Festive's one of Festive's favorite channels. Um, and the Eagles are looking to rebound after a tough opening game loss against the Washington football team last Sunday, 27-17, of course. 17, nothing looked good, and then the Washington football team scored 27 unanswered. But, hey, you know what? It was a week ago. Let's get past that game, please. I hope so. I hope that's not a reoccurrence of how the season's going to go. Like I said before last week's game, I said 10-6, and I'm gonna stick to 10-6. I'm not gonna backtrack or anything. I know that there's issues. I know that there's some injuries, but we are getting some guys back. Lane Johnson should be playing tomorrow, which would be a big help on the right side of the O line. Yeah, and also Miles Sanders will be there. One of the great offensive weapons that this team has, and he was missed a week ago. I mean, look, the running game never got off the ground against Washington, and Washington's very stout up front, as we know, got a lot of pressure on the quarterback. But one of the reasons why they did is because the Eagles never could get a run game going, even when it was 17-0. It was like Boston Scott or Corey Clement would take the ball and they would get engulfed as soon as they tried to do anything with it. So getting a playmaker like Miles Sanders back in the offense is a definite plus, particularly when you're playing against another good defensive front in the LA Rams, and we all know about that mean number 99, right, Aaron Donald. We know about how ferocious he can be, and how that defense can be. As he goes, they go. On the D line, and then of course with the highest paid cornerback in the league, and maybe the history of the league, and Jalen Ramsey. I guess they had to back up a couple Brinks trucks for him. And rightfully so. The Rams, they wouldn't have made that trade for him if they weren't going to retain him. I'm kind of hoping the Phillies feel the same about JT Realmuto. I mean, I'm just saying. Don't let one of those New York teams gobble him up in the offseason. Let's keep him here. Gave up a very good prospect in Sixto Sanchez to get him, so hopefully, they can retain him after this season. And yes, the Phillies, Festive does did remind that they are still have a chance at the playoffs. And you know what? I don't know what they'll do in the playoffs with this horrendous bullpen, but I'd rather see them in than not. And Festive would too. So we'll see what happens. Right now they're playing Toronto, and in the bottom of the third, it's a scoreless game. So we'll see. Big comeback win yesterday in the second of the doubleheader, and swept that doubleheader yesterday to keep their playoff hopes alive. You got about a week left in the season now, so we'll see what our Fighting Phils can do as they are playing Toronto today and tomorrow. But of course, this series is more about the team that wears green, not about the team with the mascot that wears green, but the team that wears green, the Philadelphia Eagles. And of course, as I said, look, I just this. I would feel better. I honestly would. I would feel better with this game tomorrow if there were fans in the stands. Having an empty stadium. You talk about football, and football is such an emotion sport, right? It's so emotionally driven, and that's why some of those teams that have great home field advantages, they have great home field advantages because the fans really make a difference. They get the team involved. They wreak havoc on the opposing team week after week, and they're very difficult places to play. But now you go into a season where some stadiums are 25% occupancy, no occupancy like it is going to be here. And it's different. It makes a difference. I mean, if the Eagles were going into this game tomorrow with a packed house at the link, I would say, and it's not to say that a team from the West Coast couldn't come here and win. I mean, obviously Seattle did it twice last year. But I would feel a little better, with the fact that I think the fans could make a difference with that with that Rams offense with Jared Goff, because so much of that offense is, play calling. It's audibling. It's whatever those crazy things that McVay likes to do offensively. And you go into a stadium that's making a ton of noise. It's tougher to do that. Now you go into an empty stadium, and yeah, I mean, some of the things the Rams like to do in offense, they're still going to be able to do. They're still going to be able to make those plays those calls at the line. So that's a bit of a disadvantage. I don't think it's right. I'm not going to get on a soapbox here, but I don't think it's right that the NFL has taken this stance that some stadiums can have some fans in and some stadiums can't, depending on what state they're in and depending on what the location they're in because of the COVID and everything. I just don't think it's right. I mean, there is a competitive balance. There should be a competitive balance. And if you're going to have some stadiums with no fans in them and some stadiums like Kansas City and Cleveland and Dallas and some of these other places, they're going to have, even if it's only 25% full, it's still, there's still fans there. It's a difference, and it's unfortunate because, like I said, this is the Eagles are one of those teams that have thrived in recent years with the home field advantage, with the fans, there, so, in those games and giving it to the opposing team. And unfortunately, that's not going to be the case unless it changes later in the season. But it's going to be an empty stadium, and it's a shame. It is a shame. It's a shame that, you see, as an Eagles fan, I'm sitting here, seeing these other, stadiums and have, even if it's not a lot of fans, there's still fans there. Being able to go to games and have that experience, be a part of it. And here we are, empty. They're not even letting anyone in the parking lots. They're not even, they're trying to keep the fans as far away as they can. They pretty much put out that mandate, during the week that they're going to really be, really cracking down, not letting anyone, like, the Phillies have the fandemics out there blowing the air horns during the home games and can't even do that, at the link. So it's definitely going to be different. It's definitely going to be a different kind of year because of that. And it's not just the Eagles, it's going to be for other teams too. And like I said, I think it's a poor decision by Roger Goodell and the powers that be. Because like I said, I just don't think it's right. I don't think it's right that you should have some stadiums, where they get some fans in there and some where it's empty. I just think it should be across the board. Either you're going to let 25% of the fans in every stadium in the league, or you're gonna just go no one in the stadiums, just like it was for the other sports. And I'm not saying, it should be like a bubble type of situation for football. But in baseball, baseball's a prime example. Every single stadium, there's no fans in the stands. There's cardboard cutouts in every single stadium in the league. And now they're going to have a bubble situation for the playoffs where there's not going to be any fans at those games either. And that's a case in point because you look at basketball and hockey, they just did a bubble situation across the board. But baseball did it where they're all playing in their home ballparks, but no one's there. And I think that's how the NFL should have done it too. But the NFL, they're more money driven. They want that dollar. They'll do anything they can get for that dollar. So they're letting some places have 25% of the occupancy in there. And to me, it just makes no sense at all. None at all. It's ridiculous. But and I'm not trying to sound like sour grapes as an Eagles fan. Oh, we're an empty stadium and Cleveland fans can go or Dallas fans can go. But I do think that does make a bit of a difference. And, again, the competitive balance, you're looking at teams in the division where you got the Eagles, fans can't go, the Meadowlands, whatever it is, Washington, but Dallas fans can go. It doesn't make any bit of sense. But is what it is. They expanded the playoffs, whatever. But main point being, and I know a long way around, main point being, if there were fans, if it was a normal type of season and there were fans there, I think it would have been a bit of a difference, for the Rams coming here, for that type of offense where it's so, play call driven, it makes a difference when you have fans in the stands booing and, getting to Jared Goff, but we'll see. So I think tomorrow's game's a coin flip. I really do. It's the type of game where I can easily see either team win. I would much rather the Eagles win. But both teams, it's interesting because both teams kind of had a bit of a similar game a week ago, whereas the Rams got off to a real hot start on offense, then, started, the drives weren't as easy after that. The Eagles, the same thing, and there was pressure getting to Carson Wentz, and, the turnovers and the poor play calling and keeping Deshaun Jackson on the sidelines for, like a pitch count and different stuff that just didn't make any bit of sense. But the Rams kind of did it too. The Rams, started out like a house of fire. They started out, they scored on their first drives. They were, looking really good. The running game, which really was good all game long, was setting the tone for that offense. And it's weird, right? Because when you think of the Rams, I know they had Todd Gurley there for a while, but you think of the Rams, it's like a pass first offense, and it's like the passing game for that team, like set the tone for their offense. Well, in week one, you saw it was the running game that set the tone for that offense, and they were able to have success, particularly early in the game against Dallas, who does have a good defense. And give credit where credit's due. Even as an Eagles fan, I do give credit where it's due. And Dallas's defense is good. They have some players there, playmaking ability. But with that, the Rams were able to move the ball. The Eagles, we have some injuries now. I haven't heard updates on Brandon Graham. I know it was like concussion protocol. I don't imagine he would be playing, but I don't know. If you heard different, please leave it in the comments. I've heard like conflicting things about Derek Barnett, if he's going to play or not. Vinny Curry obviously is out for some weeks with a hamstring injury. So, yeah, I mean, the pass rush, they're thin. They're thin and they have some inexperience there. Front is still going to be good. I know Fletcher and Jackson up front. I mean, Jackson looked really good. Malik Jackson looked really good a week ago against Washington. And Fletcher didn't really show up on the stats sheet as much. But then again, you see the type of game that Malik Jackson had, and the fact that Fletcher does take so much attention on him, it does open it up for the guy next to him, right? So Malik Jackson had a really good game, in part because Fletcher's drawing all these double teams, right? Now Fletcher still has to get it done, right? He's an All-Pro. He is year after year voted one of the best defensive linemen in the league, and rightfully so. He's a game difference type maker. I mean he's not as flashy, as an Aaron Donald would be, or some of these other guys you see on up front. But he's just steady. He's steady and he's solid. And what he also does is, like I said, he draws that double team so that the guy next to him, in this case Malik Jackson or Hargraves when he comes in, are going to have a lot of success because now they have to just be one-on-one. And as you saw a week ago, Malik Jackson was able to do a pretty good job with that. Made some nice plays a week ago. And it kind of went unnoticed in a way because of the loss. And, we were all panning that, what happened? How did we let that lead get away, blah, blah, blah. But one of the Eagles that did have a really solid game overall was Malik Jackson. And like I said, one of the reasons for that is because Fletcher is there taking the, drawing a double team, drawing that extra protection with the opposing offensive line. And so it is going to open it up a bit, for some of these other guys on the interior line and on the outside. So that's certainly a good thing. And I would imagine that's still going to be the case tomorrow night, or tomorrow afternoon, I should say. But, overall, I think the secondary did a pretty good job a week ago. We didn't see a lot of those guys getting beat on the double moves as we became accustomed to seeing over the years with Jalen Mills and whoever was Ronald Darby and whoever was out there, Sidney Jones. Every week a receiver would beat him on a double move and go deep. It was a game by game occurrence, right? You didn't see that last week. So I think overall, and the defense kept having short fields to have to defend. But I think overall, I think they did a pretty good job. Didn't get any turnovers, which I think is paramount. I definitely think you got to get some turnovers tomorrow. If the Eagles do not get a turnover tomorrow, as it was a week ago, it's going to be very difficult to win. You can't lose the turnover battle week after week and win games. And already the Eagles are 0-1, and they lost a turnover battle last week. So I would hope that this defense can get some turnovers. Look, Jared Goff, He's a decent quarterback. I'm not a huge Jared Goff guy. You know, I don't know. I think in some ways he benefits with that system they have there with the Rams with McVay, and look, quarterbacks are going to benefit from their situations. It's across the board. But I just I look at Jared Goff and I see a guy. I'm not like blown away by Jared Goff. I know he went to the Super Bowl a couple of seasons ago, and boy, that Super Bowl was very forgettable. But yeah. But I just I'm not overly worried about Jared Goff. I don't know. There's just something. And he's been in the league as long as Carson has been, but there's still something. I don't know. There's still something missing with Jared Goff. I don't know. I'm not overly blown away by Jared Goff, but we'll see. I mean, he has some weapons there at receiver. They got Higbee, a very good tight end. So there's weapons and there's guys you have to cover. But it's going to come down to getting pressure on him. It's going to come down to getting those turnovers, winning the turnover battle. And look, I mean, it could be one of those games where you might have a duel between the two quarterbacks that were drafted in the same draft, right? Between Wentz and Goff. And it's really, to me, it's going to come down to which quarterback makes the fewest mistakes. If Carson turns over the ball a few times and Jared doesn't, the Rams are probably going to win. If the Eagles defense gets some turnovers on Jared and Carson has a pretty clean game, I think the Eagles are going to win. Now my ultimate prediction is I believe the Eagles get the win. The Eagles are one of those teams that it's like in the Doug Peterson regime, it's like coming off a bad loss. They normally don't have two bad losses in a row. I know there was a few games last year at home against the the Patriots, the Seahawks, but for the most part, during these seasons where Doug Peterson's been the coach, the Eagles have not really suffered back-to-back bad losses. They have a loss and then they follow that up with a better performance and a win. And I think that trend continues. I don't feel as confident about it as I would if it was a packed house. Nor do I feel as confident about because of what happened a week ago. But I do understand the situation a week ago, and I also understand the situation across the board, where you had this crazy offseason where there really wasn't much of an offseason, and practice time. And you see it around. It's not just what happened with the Eagles last week, but you see it around the league pretty much. Where teams have kind of struggled, teams that were predicted to win a week ago, like the 49ers and some of those other teams, suffered losses. Having that lack of practice and what have you in the offseason just or leading up to the season, I think it's going to take some time. And some people have said September's like the preseason, for the NFL, for teams in the NFL. And there might be something to that. And also coupled with the fact, and I'm not going to use injuries as an excuse, but you did have a lot of injuries a week ago. You had star players not playing last week, and guys who went out during the game. And yeah, stop me if you've heard this before. Eagles get hurt during the game. It happens every week. Multiple players. Again, I don't understand it. Is what it is. There were a lot of injuries in week one around the league, but it's like the Eagles, it just continues and continues and continues. Get us off the hamster wheel. But anyhow, I think there were some factors at play a week ago. It's not an excuse. Look, you're up 17-0 against a team you should have beaten, and you let that team come back and win the game. It is a tough loss. It's an inexcusable loss. But at the same time, I think this, like I said, this team is pretty good at bouncing back. They do get Lane back. They do get Miles back. We'll see about Derek Barnett. And as weeks go on, maybe you start getting some other guys back. And now you have a more healthy team. And who knows what can happen. It's a tough schedule. I mean, I looked at it the other day again. We're going to be seeing a lot of really good competition this season. I mean, teams like the Saints, the 49ers, this week with the Rams. We'll see Seattle again this year. They never seem to beat Seattle. And then you got teams like Pittsburgh. You got a lot of good teams and a lot of really good ferocious defenses. And that's not even saying about the division teams. You play twice a year, and even though some of those games, I know against the Giants and Washington over the years have been wins besides last week, you can't just overlook these teams because they're divisional opponents. And they're going to be difficult, and there's going to be games come down to the wire type of games that usually these NFC East games kind of have. So that all being said, I'm going to predict a win tomorrow. I don't know the score, but something just tells me that this team is going to find a way to get a victory, get the 1-1. And then the following week, you take on, a rookie quarterback in the Bengals. And that Burrow's has played pretty decently so far this season. So I don't think it's a layup. I don't think it's a gimme. I don't think any game's a gimme, to be honest, particularly this season. But like I said, I think that that the Eagles at the end of the day have a decent shot to get a win. But you got to win the turnover battle. You got to protect Carson better. And you know what? Hey, Doug, you got that number 26 coming back into the lineup. 26, that Miles Sanders coming back into the lineup. You might want to use him a little bit. Maybe run the ball. Maybe have a little balance. Because how do you beat a really good pass rush? You mix it up. You run the ball a bit. Little slants. Get Carson to roll out a bit. I mean, go to the strengths. Particularly when things are starting to fall apart, you got to go to the strengths. You can't get away from it. And, Doug has that old quarterback mentality of throw, throw, throw. But you have a pretty good running back, come back into the lineup in Miles Sanders. Utilize him. Use him. Even if the run isn't working like in the first quarter, don't just abandon it and forget about it. Because Miles is one of those type of running backs that he and I've seen many of them over the years, right? You bottle him up, and the next thing he breaks it for a 70-yard touchdown. How many times have we seen that? Even last season, right? Bottle him up, and boom, there he goes for a long run. So utilize your stars. Put D-Jax out there more. Don't have the stupid pitch count or whatever it is with him. Let your stars be stars on this offense, particularly in a game like tomorrow where you're going up against a very good defense, guys like Donald and Ramsey. Utilize your stars. They got to be on the field. And if they're on the field, use them. Sometimes it's the old KISS concept, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? I mean, if you have the known commodities, go to them. Go to them. I know they love to throw to Ertz and Goddard. That's all wonderful. You have D-Jax. Now you have Miles Sanders coming back. So the weaponry is starting to get more into the chest now, okay? So utilize these guys. Use them. But we'll see what happens. Again, I'm predicting a win tomorrow. I do think it'll be a close game. Maybe it's a difference of about 8 points to 4 points, somewhere in that kind of range. But I think the Eagles get the win tomorrow and open their home schedule with a victory to even the record at 1-1. And anyhow, that's my thoughts on it. Anyhow, that's my prediction. Take it for what it's worth. Anyhow, let's get into the last segment, which of course is the Festive Four, the 4-pack of winners that Festive believes are going to win tomorrow in week 2. Okay, so it wasn't a good week last week, Festive. Just like the Eagles, week 1 didn't go very well. Festive went 1-3 with the picks last week. But like the Eagles and like Eagle fans are hoping for a rebound in week 2. So these are the 4 winners that Festive likes for week 2. So here we go. First of all, Festive likes Green Bay over Detroit. That's the first game. Likes discount double check to beat those Motor City Kitty Cats. Festive also likes Tennessee to beat Jacksonville. And I understand that Jacksonville was picked against last week, Festive. That didn't go very well, but hopefully the magic of Minshew doesn't come back to bite you again this week. But Tennessee over Jacksonville. And also, Festive knew about that Murray there in Arizona. So look out for Murray, okay? So Murray beat the 49ers. Festive lost that game with the 49ers losing to Arizona. So this week, Festive's picking Arizona to beat the team that beat the Eagles last week, the Washington football team in Arizona. Festive likes Murray to do a little better job against that ferocious front of Washington and get the win there. And to round it off, the final game, Festive likes the team from the western side of the state, the Pittsburgh Steelers, to defeat the Denver Broncos. Festive likes that Steelers defense against a young quarterback in locks. So we'll see how that goes. So in repeat here, Green Bay over Detroit, Tennessee over Jacksonville, Arizona over Washington, and Pittsburgh over Denver. And that is it. The Festive Four. There is no more picks for the Festive Four. That's your weekly 4-pack of picks. Don't blame Festive if they don't come true. If you put some shekels on the games, and just you don't want to deal with the smoke over there. Festive looks harmless, but foxes always have a way. They're very sly. So anyhow, everyone, that's going to do it for this week's pre-game episode of Season of the Fan for Week 2. Eagles versus the LA Rams. First time we're playing the LA Rams since they returned to LA here in Philly, and unfortunately it's in an empty stadium. But yes, hey, the Eagles with Doug Peterson, and for what it's worth, he's 2-0 versus the Rams so far. Both games, of course, were in the Coliseum previous to this one, but still, 2-0 is 2-0. McVay has not beaten Peterson to this point, so we'll see. I'm predicting the Eagles win tomorrow. Let's go Birds, as always. Let's get in the win column for the first time this season, even the record at 1-1. And I will see you after the game at some point, either tomorrow, Monday, whatever. We'll be back to recap the game, hopefully talking about an Eagles victory, because God knows we need it. All right, everyone, take care. Let's go Birds. Enjoy the game and the games tomorrow. See you at some point afterwards.